we built a rental portfolio of about 300 houses in the course of probably about 4 years, primarily single family houses. And my partner's like, hey guys, I want to retire one day. I don't think we should keep buying rental properties. At that exact time, this is probably late 2018, Eric Brewer is having a conversation with us and he's like, hey, have you guys thought about selling turnkey rentals? We began to buy houses, renovate them, and sell them as turnkey rental properties to third-party investors. Between 2019 and early last year, when we pivoted out of it, we sold and delivered about 500 turnkey properties that we renovated and then also property managed.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Evergreen Marketing Podcast by Carrot.com, where we help you build a business of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Brady Winder, and today we're talking with a new friend, not new to Carrot, not new to Trevor, but somebody who's had a lot of success in real estate early on and did something crazy. So Xander here decided to sell off 500 contracts to rental properties and basically took his business down to a third of the size of what it used to be, which you don't hear about that often. You don't hear about people downsizing or shrinking back. And so I think we need to talk about this. Most people call that crazy, but the main reason I wanted to bring him on is because we were talking before we recorded the podcast, and he was talking about how critical it is to pay attention to where the market is heading, what headwinds to pay attention to, so that you know when to pivot and you can be a couple steps ahead of the market instead of responding reactively in panic mode. So super sharp guy, really knows real estate and operations, and I'm excited to unpack his story. But Xander, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, bit of a long intro, but yeah, dude, I'm excited to have this conversation. Give me your real estate journey in a nutshell. What's that kind of look like? Where'd you start? Where are you today? What's your business model?
Sure. I try to keep it really short. I like to tell people this because it's true. I got into real estate by chance. It was never my plan. The long story short is I came home from college in 2011 and I didn't have a job. And the job market wasn't really that great. We were still kind of lingering out of that 2008 recession. And my parents happened to be listing their house for sale. And the broker offered me a part-time job, which I accepted because I had nothing.
Yeah.
And actually, she was paying me $20 an hour. So I felt like I was on top of the world.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple weeks later, she called me up and she's like, hey, I was testing you. You seem like a really hard worker. I want to offer you a full-time job. So I went and worked for her for a year. I got my real estate license in that time. And that was how I got my foot in and fell in love with the speed of real estate. I also learned a lot in that time. And I also learned, I don't like retail real estate. I like investment real estate. So about a year and a half later, after that first year, is when I got into the investment side of the business. And I've been there ever since.
Nice. What was your intro into investing? Did you read Rich Dad? Did somebody hand you a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or was it different?
It was completely different. I had an early mentor that I was working with out of the same real estate office that was starting to show me the ropes, and I was really getting interested in it. And then, life works in funny ways. My broker at the time, who was an amazing person, called me and said, hey, I want to introduce you to this guy. I think you should talk. And that's how it started. And that guy ended up being my business partner for about 8 or 9 years. We're still partners in a rental portfolio now. So just the way that relationships and maintaining them well has really worked out for me, and it led me to kind of a launching pad with that partner, and we grew the business that I still own today over that time. So yeah,
let's break that down. What did you guys end up doing together? What was that business adventure, and then what's your main business model now? And then we'll get into, after that, we'll talk about we're selling off the portfolio and all that jazz.
Yeah, I like to say that we covered all the bases together. He was already flipping houses when I met him. He was older than I am. And so we started flipping houses here in Maryland together. And his name's Craig, by the way. And Craig, when I first met him, was actually a business partner of Eric Brewer in Pennsylvania. A lot of people in the industry know Eric Brewer's name. So when I met Craig, we started flipping houses in Maryland. We both lived here and were passionate about the area. And so we did fix and flip for quite a while. Then we had a house we couldn't sell. So we called our bank and asked them if we could turn it into a rental. And they said yes. And that was our first one.
Hmm.
And it worked out well. We got the right refi and it cash flowed well, rented right away in a great location. And then we said, oh, wait a minute. This is pretty interesting. This is probably like 2015, let's say, maybe 2016.
Okay.
So we called the bank back and we said, can we do more of these? And they said, yeah. And we're like, well, how many? And they're like, well, I mean, deals like that, it's just kind of unlimited. You bring us, just keep bringing them. So a couple weeks later, we sent them like 10 new properties that we wanted to make rentals. And they called and they were like, wait a minute, we didn't actually mean unlimited. You need to slow down. But now we have found something. So we obviously worked with some other local banks, and we in that time, in the years following, we built a rental portfolio of about 300 houses, all here in the Baltimore metro area. And we also got into wholesaling at that time, and we were still flipping houses. So we were covering the single family space pretty darn well.
You said
Um,
300 houses in about a year?
no, sorry. That was in the course of probably about 4 years, 4.5 years.
Okay. Either way, still that's a fast pace.
Yeah, well, because at the same
So,
time we were still flipping houses too. So
yeah.
that's kind of a key part of the story, is that we, for many years, going back to probably about that time, or we really scaled rehabbing to what I would say is the the most you can logically scale it, in my humble opinion. Where for a lot of years we would rehab 100 houses in a year. And they're primarily full rehabs, not light rehabs. So that's a big part of the story. And then we reached a point where we got right about 300 properties, and these are all single family. There might have been a couple duplexes in there, but primarily single family houses. Um, and my partner's like, "Hey guys, I want to retire one day. I don't think we should keep buying rental properties." And coming full circle at that exact time, this is probably late 2018. Eric Brewer is having a conversation with us, and he's like, "Hey, have you guys thought about selling turnkey rentals?" And we were like, "What does that mean? Don't really know what that is." So that's the next story part of the evolution, is instead of buying our own rentals, we began to buy houses, renovate them, and sell them as turnkey rental properties to third party investors. And so we went all in on that in 2019. Between 2019 and early last year, when we pivoted out of it, we sold and delivered about 500 turnkey properties that we renovated and then also property managed. So if you're following along, if I'm making any sense at all, there was kind of sort of a logical evolution that occurred as we went from flipping to rentals to wholesaling to turnkeys. And then in the midst of that, I almost forgot, we sold about 250 of the rental properties that we owned. So we narrowed our ownership portfolio way down. And then we got to last year where I said, I don't think we should keep selling turnkeys. I think we should turn that off and pivot completely out of it and sell our property management business. And credit to Trevor, who's not on the call, but I think Trevor has been working with me one-on-one and was a key part of helping me figure that out.
Nice. Okay, so I want to talk about, what was the sexy thing about getting into turnkeys, and then why'd you get out? And maybe we'll talk about the property management too, because I meet like one for every 10 people that actually like property management. The rest hate it.
I think 1 in 10 would be a lot. Um,
Yeah.
so the sexy thing about turnkey for us is it worked really, really well on our market. The cash flow, especially from 2019 until through most of 2022, but until rates really went up, the cash flow was really strong. The rent to sale price ratios were really strong. And so for us, it worked really well because we have an ample amount. The market does not have a lot of inventory, but the inventory that we could get our hands on and that we geared our marketing towards, we could get a lot of it. We could really produce a volume of those homes. We already had the tools in place to buy them and rehab them. selling them became honestly the easiest part of all. There was people lined up to buy these. Um, and then property management, we had some experience because we were managing our own rentals. So we felt like we already had the tools. It was just combining them all into one model. And, frankly, it worked really well for several years there. It was very profitable. It was, we had great teams in place. We had built a lot of systems along the way. Um, and it worked really well until it slowly stopped working as well. And I think the primary driver of that would be the interest rates changing and inflation. Um, but yeah, at some point,
It was just
yeah,
getting harder to sell properties, you mean, when it stopped working
it,
well?
everything was harder. It was selling was harder. There was less demand. The the product that we were selling was the same product physically, but the returns for the investor were lower because rates were up so much. And
Mm.
then insurance started going up. And in the midst of all that, I think any business owner on this call who had employees in that period of time with the past 5 years, they know everyone wants to make more money. Inflation is real. Your people that used to make 70,000 a year probably make 100,000 now, or more. And so all these forces kind of were hitting at once, and everything kept getting more compressed. Um, so that was, externally and internally, it just wasn't. It made it really hard to produce that kind of volume where we were before and have the same anywhere near the same margins. Um,
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. So clarify for me. I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast you had sold off 500 of these properties. You were selling off the contracts to the property management. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So at the end, or at the midpoint of last year, by the time we had stopped selling turnkeys, we were no longer bringing on any new third party properties or contracts. We were already at that point exploring the sale of what we had existing. Um,
Okay.
and that sale was executed pretty quickly in the fall of last year is when it actually closed. Um, and it was to actually another local company that we were able to sell the contracts to.
Okay, that's nice. Just a relationship you guys already had. You didn't have to like go way out of your way to find a buyer.
It, it was a long path, but
Yeah.
honestly, we were talking to three other buyers, and I kind of felt like we were hitting our head on the wall. And I forget exactly how it came up, but I think I was in a meeting with another group of business owners, and somebody was talking about how at the last second they found a buyer for their company, and they were there the whole time. And it hit me. I was like, wait a minute, I know the buyer. It's these guys who are local, who we don't know them super well. We're not like friends or anything. I'm like, wait a minute, these guys are perfect. They're really kind of a competitor. They should buy this. And
Yeah.
so a Zoom call was set up the next day, and then we went into diligence and we closed a couple months later.
Nice. That's awesome. What was it like getting into property management and then selling that off? I'd imagine you're like growing the team, and I'd imagine like that really makes your week pretty full. I'd imagine like your average day, your average week is a lot different when you're property managing that many properties versus now.
Yeah, I would say, I wasn't I personally wasn't property managing, but I was managing a really big team that was
Yeah.
managing all the properties. And
Yeah.
it's hard. I one lesson that I learned from it, and I don't live with any regrets, but one lesson that I really believe is, if you're going to do property management, and this might be true for a lot of things, probably is. I can hear Trevor in my head as I say this.
Yeah.
You got to be able to focus on that one thing. So when I'm
Mm.
trying to focus on buying houses and selling houses and rehabbing 50 houses at a time, it doesn't really leave me a whole lot of bandwidth to make sure that property management is functioning the way it should be. So we definitely had operational issues, to say the least. I would say, depending on the day, we were average at property management, um, which is not really the kind of company that probably any business owner wants to say they have. But I'm humble enough to say that, like, we weren't that good at it. And part of the problem was because we were trying to do other things at the same time.
Mm.
Um, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like the redheaded stepchild. Like, it's tough. it's a really tough business. So you're
Yeah.
not exactly drawn to it to go in there and fix stuff.
Not a lot of motivation. Before last time we chatted, you mentioned, "Hey, I'm great at this." Walk me through that. What are you really good at? What are you okay? What are you average at?
At my core, I feel I'm a deal maker. I love the thrill of making a deal, whether that's getting something that we're buying. I also enjoy it again when we're getting under contract to sell. It's just kind of a rush, and I really enjoy that. A lot of the other stuff I don't necessarily enjoy. I think we talked before the call. I'm an ADHD kid, always have been. I call myself a kid, and I know I'm not, but um, I have a hard time focusing on one thing for a long time.
Yeah.
And admin work is not my specialty, and I can envision really well of how I want something done or what the end goal is. But when it comes to implementing that, it's not my strength. So I need good team members to help with that. And I've been fortunate over the years that we were always finding good team members, and some of them are still with me today, which is awesome. Um, but yeah, that would be my strength is more on the vision side and the deal making side. Uh, and the sales, humbly again, I think I'm a pretty good salesperson. Uh, I personally sold a lot of those turnkey properties that we talked about. Um, so yeah, that's where I would say.
Nice. I like that. I think it's important context for people to hear because a lot of guys get into this and I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's just like their own vision or external pressure, but there's this feeling of like, I got to build, I got to scale. And like, here's the logical path. But really, it's not, okay, here's the one ideal path. You can really grow the business into whatever you want. And so for you, it sounds like it was kind of a mix of, okay, I need to find my strengths. I need to get back to my strengths of what I really enjoy, but also a mix of like, okay, I need an element of change. Something about the business model has to interest me and change. Would you say that's true?
I think it is definitely true, and I also think that this scaling thing it's a big deal. And I mentioned to you I was just at the mastermind group that I've been in for 5 years at Investor Fuel. We met in
Yeah.
California, and my good friend Blake in Chicago. Shout out Blake if you're listening. Um, I've known him for 5 years now, and in this presentation, he was talking about this, and him and I have talked about this too. Is like scaling's not really always the answer. I mean, it's a very individual answer as a business owner. And we kind of both feel the same that we don't want to have huge teams. We don't necessarily I don't, when I look back at it, I kind of cringe. And I think I literally just got goosebumps thinking about having like 37 employees.
Yeah.
Um, and, to some people listening, 37 is nothing, right? I mean, you know, the Hopkins system here locally has 18,000 employees. So
Sheesh.
the scaling thing, you know, real estate investors, we're not scaling big companies. We're not building tech companies that are going to go public on an IPO. And, you're hiring top tier talent out of, pick a place, Harvard Business School or something. It's just not the world we live in. Um, so I think that scaling in real estate can happen on a much smaller scale, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that I know that we successfully scaled to a large point, and then we also reached that point where we're like, this doesn't really make sense anymore. It's time to scale back. And I think there's nothing wrong with scaling back. I think it makes sense for people depending on where they are and also where the market is, because obviously you have no control over the market. And
Yeah.
um, when do you scale back? That's a hard thing to answer. Although, if you look at the, let's say like the tea leaves, and I have a really easy time with that in my mastermind groups because I can hear from people all over the country. And when we're all saying the same things, houses are taking longer to sell. My budgets keep going over, costs keep going up. I'm not making the money I was making before. I'm putting in the same or more effort. Those are some signs that, things have really shifted, and maybe you need to shift some of the goals with it. Um, so I'll refer back to my friend Blake. He said in his talk, he's like, what's the point in having, let's say, pick a number, 15 employees, and you make $1 million in a year, and you've got a lot of stress and liability and overhead? He's like, if I'm looking at this right, I can probably have 3 or 4 employees and make almost as much money with way less overhead and way less stress, why would I ever why would I scale up to do that? It doesn't really make sense.
Hmm.
And again, some of that is totally market driven. A lot of people in the space had their very best years in the COVID year 2020 and the immediate year after that 2021. Everybody was pumping their chests, and you were planning to sell a house for 500,000 and it sells for 580, and you just made all this extra money, and those days are gone. And it's back to reality, and it's back to what it was when I first started in the business.
Yeah.
So you weigh all that. A lot of that comes from experience, and people that haven't been in the business that long don't know that. And I didn't know that because I wasn't in it in 2008. I was in college.
Yeah.
So when I talk to those veterans who lived through that, they totally get it and they understand it.
Yeah.
So it's all perspective, I think.
So what I'm hearing is that, Xander, your pivots seem pretty confident and timely, at least for your age. Like, I know, like, if I were having this conversation with like a real estate veteran who's been doing it 20 or 30 years, that makes sense, but you haven't been in it as long. So I guess my question is, like, what are the specific things you're paying attention to in the market to know when to pivot? Or what are the things you feel like some of the other investors are just ignoring?
I mean, you can keep it really simple and say, look at your P&L and watch that. We can't make a judgment call off of 1 month, but off of 3 months, let alone 6 months, you should know something's not working. And then you use that as an indicator, and then you combine, okay, well, my flips are taking longer to sell. My days on market have doubled, or whatever the thing might be that's changed. You can dig into that P&L. Did something else change? Has your insurance doubled? Or did you hire 4 more employees and your revenue didn't move? That's a pretty good indicator or a potential issue. I'll steal this one. I hate to keep saying Trevor, but I'm gonna steal this from Trevor. We talked heavily about this recently, and that was looking at the revenue per employee in my company. So you can take January to June, whatever your revenue was, pick a number, and then obviously multiply it by 2 for the year, and then divide that by your number of employees. And a healthy small business in the niche space that we're in should be like a bare minimum of 300,000 per employee, probably, but really should be higher than that. But that's like bare minimum. Anything below that, we've got an issue. And 400's pretty good. 500 and above is really good. And knowing that is really important because, again, looking back over the past 5 years, it was very easy in the 2020, 2021, and even 22 to hire ahead. You could see the pain point coming before it ever actually got to you. And because we were all making more money, because the sale prices were just skyrocketing, it was very easy to be like, okay, I know we're going to pick a job. We're going to need this admin person for the accounting team. Sometime later this year, we're going to start looking right now. We're going to hire the right one now. There's no reason to wait. And now we're back to a place where the opposite is true. I don't want to hire them until it hurts. Like we're like Abby, my controller, who's been with us for 8 years. I need her to be like, okay, seriously, I'm drowning again and again. I can't get this done. Like I need extra hands. Okay, now we can hire. I think that's the mentality. And it's a very measurable thing when you look at it that way.
Interesting, man. What are some of the other takeaways you've had from like scaling back, knowing when to hire, when to not hire?
On the personal side of things, I'm sitting here and I got a nice polo on. And when I say a nice polo, by the way, this is from Sam's Club. I love Sam's Club. It's like a $15 shirt and I get so many compliments on it. But personally, I led with that to soften it a little. Scaling back really sucked. If you would have asked me a few years ago, hey, in a few years, how do you feel about, cutting your team way down? I would be like, what are you talking about? So
hard to
number one,
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, number one, there's the ego side of it. It's like, that sucks. Like, you kind of sort of feel like you're failing, although you can really work your way through that and realize I'm not failing. I'm just protecting the future. So it's not, you got
Mm.
to really put ego aside. The worst part though, by far, was, you know, having to let go of employees that they weren't just employees. They become friends. They become your work family. They have families at home. Um, I can't tell you how brutal it was. I mean, like, going to bed at night knowing that I'm letting go of somebody that I really care about the next day. I just, it's one of the worst things I've had to do, and I did it a bunch of times, and it was brutal. Like, I just sucks.
Mm.
I realize it's part of life. It's part of business. It's happened forever, but having to do that is hard. And I think back, I think I was like 24 when I ever fired an employee. That was the first time I fired somebody.
Mm.
Um, but I had never laid anybody off. Firing is almost easier because they're either, maybe they were lying, or they were a jerk, which makes it really easy, or they just weren't good at their job. And that you can kind of feel good about that too, because you're setting them free. They can go do something else that hopefully they're better at.
Mhm.
Um, but when you're laying people off to downsize, it's a tough pill to swallow. And it was really hard. And it is still hard to even talk about. Um, I don't wish it on anyone, but again, I would say to any business owners listening, you still have to look out for your future. That's your personal future, your company's future, and the team members that you're keeping, because they still need a job, and you need your company to perform at the best level that it can, so that your people on your team can still grow and make money and feed their families, and ride this wave with you. Um,
Yeah.
so
I can't
yeah,
imagine, man. That sounds brutal. Yeah, just being able to let those people go. That's yeah. So what's the future look like for CR of Maryland? What are you guys building next? Or are you just kind of maintaining right now?
yeah. Maintaining, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word or not. I love, like I said earlier, I love making deals. I really do love buying houses. It's fun. I love seeing the transformation. I might not like doing the actual work to make it transform. I'm definitely not picking up a paintbrush. Um, I really like to have a team member who can run that from A to Z, and then I can see the finished product, or maybe I can pop in halfway through. That's kind of fun too.
Yeah.
Um, but so I think we'll always buy houses. It's kind of in our blood. It's what we've always done. I enjoy that a lot. Um, but not to the scale that we were before. I don't think I ever want to rehab 100 houses in a year. Um,
Yeah.
let's cap it at 40, and they're 40 really good deals. And that's a healthy big number for where we are today, and what I want to accomplish. So if we are good at buying houses and flipping them, we still have a wholesale arm, so we can still wholesale houses, which is uh, a great. I view it as a good thing. It's giving other people the opportunity to buy projects and take them on.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of the puzzle is we got into hard money lending last year,
Hmm.
and for me, that's a long term vision thing. We're a really small shop compared to most players in the space. Um, but I'm going to gradually keep growing that, and that's my way out of house buying in my head. Maybe
Mhm.
someone on the listening is like, "No, you're totally wrong." But um, I like lending because I understand it. I understand the deals. I think I'm pretty good at understanding people, and with the experience we've had over the years, I understand how to vet people, how to look at their credit, how to dig into their assets, how to really understand. You know, Ultimately, the question is, can they pay back this loan? And, is it a good loan? Is it a house that I would buy? So here's why I love hard money lending and why I think it's a big part of my future. A lot of the things in the house buying business, I could sit on a beach somewhere and manage it remotely. But you often get sucked back in. You got to sit down with people here. You got to go walk a house. You need to go put a second set of eyes and figure out, okay, is the layout going to work? Is there something weird going on? Whatever it might be. On the lending side, that matters way less. And on the lending side, using easy numbers, we probably put less than 10 hours into every loan. Like, as a company, between me and my controller, I'm the one underwriting the deal. And okay, less than 10 hours. And we might make, well, we definitely make less than we would if we were flipping it, but let's just use easy numbers again. We might make $15,000 on that loan. That's a pretty good hourly rate. When we flip a house, and yeah, we might make 30 or 40,000 or 50,000, or, maybe you hit a home run. But the hours involved is drastic. We from my salesperson buying it to the construction manager rehabbing it and all those trips to the house and the calls with Home Depot, and then Abby processing all the bills. And then I actually still list our houses for sale. Of course, we could certainly pay a realtor to do it, but I kind of like it.
Hmm.
So the hours spent on the sale and the home inspection repairs and this and that, it's hundreds of hours on every deal, or probably somewhere close to it. So as an hourly rate of return, it's lower, and it just takes up a lot more time. Um, so time is not a, hold on, I'm going to say this right. Time is a finite thing, right? It's not
Yeah.
infinite.
Yeah.
It's a finite
Right.
thing. And everybody here, we only have a certain amount of time, and every day we have less time. So, um, I want to really focus on spending it on the things that make the biggest difference for me. And whether that's in the business or having a bigger impact outside of the business. And then obviously with my family, we talked about having two young kids. I really want to be there and be present. And, um, I don't want to be interrupting dinner, answering a phone call from some 911 emergency. It's like, I want to turn the phone off and really spend that time with them. Um, so to me, that's what it's all about at this point, is good companies that have good margins and great people that are happy working there, and workers. And then, it's a place of enjoyment for them and for me. And then I have the ability to spend time with my family whenever that is, whenever I want to. That to
Yeah.
me is really what we are moving forward.
Yeah. What I got one question, and then I want to talk about we'll talk about rehabbing and the marketing before we wrap it up. But you've done all these different business models. You've made so many pivots over the years. What's the best piece of advice you could give to, let's say, like your average wholesaler flipper that's been doing this a couple years, self-employed? Maybe they don't have a team, but they're looking at all these different paths in front of them. Like, man, I could do this, I could do that. What would you tell them?
I think this conversation I've been having recently with people is, uh, if you want to build income and cash, the path to that at this right now today is wholesaling and flipping. Rental properties are a total long-term play. I'm not saying that you can't find a deal and you can't cash flow in a deal, but the space that I spent 9 years in the rental business in, those days are gone right now. The cash flow game is really hard right now. The lending products have tightened up. There's just a lot of challenges to that in today's environment. So if you think you're going to get rich quick on rentals, you're completely wrong. You're not retiring 5 years from now from your rental properties. Um, they're still an important strategy, and that could be your kid's college education. But I would tell you to focus on generating cash flow today, which would be from doing deals, whether that's a wholesale or a flip. I think that's the primary way to make money today, and build your foundation there. Because at the end of the day, you need cash to run the business, to
Right.
buy more deals, and probably to sleep better at night. So
Right.
that's what I
Yeah.
think is most important.
Okay, that's good advice. Okay, so two things I want to talk about. One, rehabbing for a few minutes, and then just marketing, because this is the Evergreen Marketing Podcast. But you were doing a lot of flips. You said about 100 flips a year. I don't want to oversimplify, but like, how did your team get so stinking fast at turning houses around?
Well, I don't even know if we were that fast. We just did a large volume, but
Yeah.
no, it's funny at our biggest size of that team, we had 5 project managers, and they had an admin person and they had a supervisor. Um, so number one, the team structure that worked really well. Your main guys are producing, and obviously inside of that, you had 5 different paces of, Ryan was the fastest. Ryan could complete a house in times that, like, I think the fastest one was something like 38 days. I mean, it was
Sheesh.
mind blowing. The goal was 90 days. I mean, he was like always ahead of the goal. Um, but clear goals, I think, is obviously a no-brainer part of it. And then the other big piece of it was the consistent management of it. So we custom built out Asana, let's say to a pretty high level. And every job has its own board. And there was a very specific cadence where the project manager was making updates to the board as they were out and about. And then weekly or even twice a week, reviewing every single job in that board and making sure that, the right uh, status was checked off in terms of where the job was. Um, the updates would include, here's what was completed since my last update. Here's what's happening next. And you have this chronological order of updates that you can look and say, well, wait a minute, 2 weeks ago, the roof was going on. You're saying the roof wasn't done. So it allows for quick management without me or the supervisor having to go to the job. Um,
Yeah.
it relies on the project manager being accurate, but that is their whole job, is to be accurate on those rehabs. So yeah, just a system that makes it easy to manage, and that anybody on the team could look in and say, oh, okay, I know exactly the status of that house just based on what I see in Asana. That was pretty
Yeah.
powerful and a big part of it for sure.
The system's
Um,
super dialed in and consistent. So
exactly.
a lot of investors that I talk to have a really hard time finding someone to manage projects. Where'd you find your best project managers? Was it just word of mouth? Because
Um,
you weren't. This matters too for context. You weren't project managing yourself,
right.
were you?
No, no,
So you didn't
yeah,
have the construction experience or project management.
exactly. Remember what I said earlier? I know the end goal. I can walk into a house right now that needs a full rehab. I can visualize it out. I can say, we need to change this. We need to open this wall. We need to make this a master suite. We're going to finish the basement. Here's a rec room. Here's a bedroom. Here's a bathroom. The logistics of that, in terms of, I can hear in my head the HVAC guy yelling, well, we can't put the bedroom over here because this is in the way. And I'm like, that doesn't, uh, very humbly, that was not my concern. That was for you and the project manager to figure out. And,
Yeah.
call me if you really can't figure it out, and, we can adjust the layout, but usually there's a way. So a lot of the hires we did online through, Wise Hire, which is kind of like uh, it's almost like the MLS of hiring. It feeds out to like Indeed, and it feeds out to other job boards.
Hmm.
So most of our hires come through there. Some of them are referrals or word of mouth. And of course, we'll cross post it on Facebook and LinkedIn. But that's a great platform, and it's pretty price friendly for what it is. Highly recommend it. And you can actually hire anybody on there. You can hire VAs on there. You can set the location. You can choose a different country as the location target. So yeah, it's a pretty powerful tool, and we've been using it for quite a while now.
Wise hire. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard of that one yet. That's a good tip. Um, okay, let's talk about marketing before we bring it to a wrap. Just kind of, just at a high level, like what do you guys do for marketing in the early days? What'd you try? What's working best for you right now?
Sure. Well, what's funny is I'm gonna laugh. This is funny. I'm so old that I started back when we just bought everything on the MLS, and marketing came a few years after that. So in the mid 2010s, the marketing boom really happened, and that's when we started with Carrot. That's when we got into direct mail, um, and those were probably the main two things that we started with. And then eventually we got into pay per click, and uh, I'm missing something here. We have never done TV. I think we might have tried radio super briefly, didn't find it to be successful. Um, so at the end, not much has changed. We're still on a Carrot platform and using SEO, and that's definitely the best bang for the buck lead source for us. We have pay per click. We use a couple PPL providers, um, and we're also doing direct mail now. Again, we actually paused it for a little while, but we're back in the direct mail too. Um,
Nice.
and
So you've got a
when
few
we
different ones coming in, so you don't have to. If one dips, that's okay because you got enough marketing channels coming in bringing you leads.
Yeah, and the last piece of that was, um, we when we had the big project management team, we actually had company vehicles on the road that were wrapped with all the
Mm.
information, and people would say all the time, "Well, I see your trucks everywhere."
Yeah.
So if you're going that route, I would definitely pay the money to wrap your vehicles. It makes a difference in the local market. Another free marketing or close to free marketing thing you can do is putting a sign up at every property you rehab.
Mm.
Um, as long as it's in an area where people are not going to break in and steal your stuff because they know it's a vacant rehab. That works really well, and you get neighbors calling, and um, it just brings more visibility. So I think there's things
Yeah.
like that you can do at the local level. That can go a long way. I know a guy. I don't do this, but um, Phil in Buffalo is a good advertiser, and he's on like the grocery cart advertisement and different things like that. He
Yeah.
really has built a local presence, and he's having great success. So there might be something there too. Um,
Interesting. Yeah, I don't hear about
yeah,
the grocery cart for investors. You see agents there all the time, but I'd be curious.
yeah, he's got a lot of different things. He actually does radio, I believe, and TV. He's covering all the bases he can cover.
Yeah,
But
any marketing channel can work, right? Just got to know it, understand it. Yeah.
yep, and find what fits for you. I don't like videos and TV, so I don't. It just doesn't really work well for me. But Um, not to say we won't ever do it, but the online channels in the mail are working well for us.
Okay. Nice, man. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate that context. Let's do this. I'm about at time. Let's do a quick little fire round. I didn't prep you with these questions,
Okay.
but I got 4 questions for you. I'll put roughly 2 minutes on my fake timer over here and see what we can cram in the next couple minutes as we wrap it up.
So
Number 1, what's the best piece of marketing advice you could give someone? Strategy or tactic?
start with the basics. You got to have a good website. You got to build a good social media presence. Those are two things that 90% of the population are going to look up and find. And it's cheap. So start there. You don't have to go totally overboard. I would start there.
Nice. Get your branding dialed in. Okay. Number 2, what's a book that has changed your life? In a few words, what was the problem it solved? Why'd you read it?
Wow. There's been a few of them. You know what? This maybe is cliche, and it's old, but the Think and Grow Rich. That
Oh,
was
Napoleon
actually,
Hill.
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
really impactful to me, and I use some of those things in my relationships and in the business. So I really like that kind of book.
What was the
Yeah.
light bulb moment? Like, what was the thing that changed your thinking in it?
There was a few, but I have actually a couple of them written down in my daily note that I read about my
Hmm.
daily non-negotiables. And one of them is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. And I think that that's pretty well
Hmm.
encompassing, and you can feed that into a lot of different things in your life. And the negativity out there is rampant, and it brings you down. So I liked reading that daily reminder. It's useful in my marriage. It's useful in my work relationships. Um, it's useful in sales. It's just there's no need to be negative. There's a lot of other ways to converse and deal with things.
Yeah, that's huge. It's so simple, but it's huge. And just in your thoughts, even if you're not talking, just your own thoughts of like criticizing,
It's,
condemning.
yeah.
That's a hard one, man. I'm gonna be stewing on that. That's a hard one. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, man, I think I would write a whole book and then give it to my younger self. But um,
Yeah.
I think is maybe a little bit cliche again, but the highs are not that high and the lows are not that low. And
Mm,
I think back to some of the recent years where we were really hot, riding high. You feel like this is the new you, this is the new normal. But it can change. Life can change, circumstances can change, business can change. If anything, all of them will change. So it's just kind of like keeping that in mind. And the same is true when you're having that crappy day or that crappy year. It's not forever. It's just part of the ride of life. So just don't
yeah.
get too high or don't get too low.
Interesting. I like that. The highs aren't that high and the lows aren't too low. I like that. Okay, last one. Is there any impact you're making that lights you up that you want to talk about that we haven't talked about on the podcast? Anything outside real estate? Could be whatever.
Could be whatever. Well, I think we were talking before. A lot of my time right now is definitely spent with little kids.
Yeah.
So having a 2.5-year-old and a 4-month-old is uber time consuming. Um,
Yeah.
I'll say this: we've done a lot of community work here in Baltimore around food and food insecurity,
Mm.
and I've had on the back burner. Maybe I'm saying this out loud to create a little bit more accountability for myself. I really want to get into that more and have my 5-year plan and goal is to have my own nonprofit that really specializes in that. Because
Mm.
unfortunately, there's a lot of food insecurity and food issues here locally. So I just love helping people, and it could be anything from buying from a kid's lemonade stand to delivering a meal with somebody that at Thanksgiving that was going to have nothing. And that
Mm.
lights me up outside of business and outside of maybe hanging out with my wife and kids. I
Yeah.
think it's really enjoyable, and I want to spend more time on it.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And I feel like that's the key. Like, if you don't have and you know this, but if you don't have a vision like that, long term vision, something driving you, then what's the point of any of it? Like, why
Right.
scale in the first place? Why do any of the things that we're talking about if
Yeah.
there's not that thing of like, man, it'd be so awesome to start a nonprofit and do this someday, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
Otherwise, what are we doing it for?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. And also, I mean, at the end, I think most people listening probably agree. I want to impact the people closest to me. That's my team members here and helping them grow personally and professionally. And my youngest guy he's 21. He's fresh out of college. Like he's a baby, and he needs. I think most people that age need good mentoring, and they just don't know what they don't know. So I was
Yeah.
blessed to have some really good mentors early on in my career, and they made a huge difference. So I want to do that for other people too.
That's huge, man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on. It's been good getting a chat, and I know you've been working with Trevor for quite some time in the Epic program and all that. And but we just met recently, so it was really good to chat and get to know your story, dude.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah,
Appreciate you, man.
thanks for hopping on. All right, everybody, if you like this, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, share with a friend. If you got any questions or you want to hop on the podcast, shoot me an email, brady@carrot.com, and I would love to chat. But until then, we'll see you guys later.